Hello, I'm the reviewer. You review it, I review you. This is my partner, Mr. It. And today, we're taking a look at an episode of Game Theory. Specifically, their topic of the true nature behind the companion cube.
There's a new cube for you to project your deranged loneliness onto.
Everyone's favorite rhombohedron has a scary little secret inside of it. And no, I'm not referring to this guy's penis.
Well, we're off to a good start.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, determined to be the first show ever to talk about Portal without once mentioning cake. Wait, I just blew it, didn't I? Let's call a spade, shall we? The companion cube is a box with hearts on it. And yet, despite being an inanimate object that appeared for a fraction of the first Portal game, the gaming community instantly fell in love, myself included.
Well, why not? I mean, just look at it. It's so cute.
Without speaking, without even moving, the weighted companion cube, which by all definition should qualify as an item, quickly rose through the ranks of gaming's all-time most memorable characters.
Wait, what?
Take that, Rystar! Screw you, Chuck Rock!
Should I know who those two are?
We grew to love this rectangular prism so much that we let it into our beds, let it chill our drinks, and let it all up in our feminine underparts. But perhaps we were too quick to let it plaster our privates.
Okay, if there's any more reference to the human nether regions, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Maybe our passion for this hexahedral ombre was a little misplaced. We grew overly attached.
Ah!
Because we were alone and desperate for a friend in the testing chambers of Aperture Science. But in our haste, we didn't bother to ask questions. We didn't stop to notice the odd coincidences. What do we really know about the nature of these cubes? What black secrets are hidden behind those pink hearts?
What darkness do you contain?
Well, first, we need to know why we love the companion cube so much. Back in the 1950s, when psychology was still interesting because there were no limitations on human testing.
Yeah! Interesting.
Those were the days. Donald Hebb placed volunteers into extreme isolation, leaving them in small, empty rooms with goggles and headphones to block out sensory input. The test was supposed to last 42 days. Test subjects barely made it 4.
Yeah, I buy that. I mean, if you left me alone with literally nothing to do with no sensory input, I probably wouldn't have lasted the first 12 hours.
As they quickly descended into madness, unable to think clearly, so lost in deprivation that they failed basic skills tests. They started to have vivid visual and auditory hallucinations, ranging from the room filling with dogs to feeling their arm getting hit with pellets fired from a miniature imaginary rocket ship.
Jesus!
In short, the Aperture Science testing would truly push subjects to their psychological limits as they wandered alone in room after room with no end in sight. Humans truly are social creatures, and studies have shown that lonely people are much more likely than connected people to believe that inanimate objects have emotions and intentions. By the time Chell and the player reach Chamber 17, we're so ready for companionship, we'll give it to anything, including a glorified storage crate.
Okay, that's why Chell probably would have fallen in love with the companion cube, but I'm pretty sure that most gamers weren't that isolated. Then again...
So basically, the companion cube is just a lovable little pile of parts that happen to be in the right time at the right place. Then what reasons could we possibly have to distrust our cuddly little cube? Well, would you believe me if I said that the weight inside those weighted companion cubes came from the bodies of failed test subjects, the dead and dying predecessors of Chell?
What?
Let's look at the evidence. What initially prompted this theory is the achievement you receive when you drop your companion cube into the incinerator during the first game. The name of the achievement is fratricide, a term denoting the act of killing your brother. It seems like an odd choice of words until you consider that the thousands of test subjects captive at Aperture, the ones who used to live in the large boxes visible at the start of the second game, are just like your brethren and may just have ended up downgraded to a smaller, more disposable box.
Or it could be because of your insistence of loving the companion cube due to your isolation, you considered it a brother or sister.
Well, first, we know it's physically possible. Our Metroid Morph Ball episode showed that a human can fit into spaces much smaller than 0.1 cubic meters.
What? No way! I gotta check this shit out. Whoa.
Now, GLaDOS is not our friend, and is far from a reliable source of information in the first game. In fact, most of what she says is false and meant to mislead Chell, thus her insistence that the cubes are A, unable to talk, and B, should be ignored if they do, make it seem like the reverse is true, that they may be able to talk and that their advice should be heeded. That's certainly the experience former Aperture employee turned test subject Doug Ratman experienced. In the Portal comics, Ratman is shown to have conversations with the companion cube he carries strapped to his back, with the cube literally giving him helpful advice. In fact, the cube's advice is the one thing that keeps him alive.
Yeah, that could be it. Or, Ratman hearing the cube talk to him could have just been another extension of his insanity. That the advice that the companion cube was giving him was actually him figuring out the solutions to these puzzles.
It even warns him against taking 2 pills labeled as ziaprazidone, supposedly antipsychotic medication, except that the real medication would be named Zyprazidone, without the A. Careless typo made by Valve? Or perhaps another Aperture test that the cube was aware of. While under its effects, the cube no longer talks, and Ratman almost gets himself killed without its advice.
Now, if you ask me, this is another thing that's kind of open to interpretation. Supposing that these pills aren't just straight up antipsychotics, they could be just straight up limiting Ratman's brain activity. Not just silencing the voice of the companion cube, but also limiting his critical thinking.
And speaking of Ratman, throughout the games you see many of his ranty scribblings on the walls. In his first chamber, you see cubes over the faces of various pictures. What many have assumed is just schizophrenic hallucinations or a fixation on the cube may be something completely different. Notice he hasn't placed cube images over just the faces of one gender, but both men and women. The term objectum sexual is given to people who literally fall in love with inanimate objects, like this woman who dumped her bow and arrow fiancé Lance to literally marry the Eiffel Tower, or this woman who married the Berlin Wall. Talk about your awkward wedding nights.
I'm just wondering what kind of mad person actually officializes that.
Now, if Ratman was indeed in love with the cube and suffering from objectum sexual, he would associate the cube with one specific sex, not plastering its picture over multiple genders. Additionally, notice that the calendar is of the Girls of Aperture Science, meaning that these pictures are of people who have worked at the company, Ratman's friends, his co-workers, people he loved and cared about. If they were dead and shoved into cubes, it would make sense that he would put cube pictures over the top of them and have hearts drawn around them.
Okay, that actually makes a bit of sense. Okay, the rest of the video is pretty much just showing the instances in the game that can prove that the companion cubes are people, and that's what gives them their sentience. It does sort of raise the question for me. If the companion cubes having people in them is what gives them sentience, then does that mean that the people inside the cubes are still alive? Or at least their brains are still active? And if so, how is that possible? Is there something built within the companion cube that allows that? That's something I really wish they would answer here. Overall, this video is really interesting. Adding interesting layers into the Portal universe that might have actually already been there the whole time. Huh. It's actually a lot of fun to look into these fan theories and to see if they actually hold water. That gives me an idea.
Well, here we are again.